Let's be brutally honest. We all know that this guy should be the most expensive Black Series action figure. Actually, scratch that. It should be the most expensive figure of all time. As a matter of fact, this figure should be in a museum somewhere. It is an absolute work of art. And let's not forget, he is also the most powerful Sith Lord of all time. And while the ladies just absolutely love him, I'm not sure if it has anything to do with his ridiculously long tongue. But anyways, I digress. Enough of that nonsense. Today's video is dead serious because we're going to be looking at the top 5 most expensive Star Wars Black Series action figures. I did quite a bit of research. I'll be brutally honest with you guys. These top 5 videos can be at times pretty draining, just because you have to like go into the website, look up the listings, look up sold listings, and then weigh a couple of other different factors like condition and whether the item is used or brand new and whether you're going to have convention exclusives in there. It's a whole different hassle. But regardless, here we go one more time. One more top 5 most expensive action figure list for you guys. Hopefully you guys genuinely enjoy it. And if you do, you guys can always hit the like button, subscribe. It always helps the channel continue to grow. Let me know what the most expensive Black Series figure in your collection is. I'm actually very curious to see how many of you guys have any figures on this list or just in general, and then whether you have it opened or unopened. But without further ado, let's get straight into it with the 5th spot on today's list, where we have the first edition Black Series Mandalorian action figure. And actually, a lot of these first edition white box Black Series figures that were released together, for some unknown reason, just have an insane value. I mean, compared to their regular counterparts. And in case you guys have been wondering, yes, this body mold has been reused and re-released an insane amount of times. You have probably like 2 to 3 2-packs released with this exact same body mold. You have the Beskar armor version, and then you have the season 1 version, and then you have, I believe it was like the concept edition retro carded version as well, which I just recently picked up. But it's just the exact same body mold, just with a different paint job. In reality, if you're picking this up, you're either an inbox collector or you just want the bragging rights to have one of the most coveted, sought after Mandalorian action figures out there. Because honestly, last time I checked, the Mandalorian action figures or any Din Djarin figures have not really gone up in value too much. Some of them may have gained a few dollars here and there, but for the most part, because they're very readily available, aside for this particular version of the Mandalorian, they usually just stay at around retail or just go over by a little bit. But as I said, this particular figure does definitely deserve a spot on the list if you guys want a brand new one in like really good condition. And clearly for this figure, you wanted brand new in box with the actual package like in perfect condition, or at least near mint condition. So if you're looking for that, you're going to be paying in the mid 100s, anywhere from like 130 to 150. I have seen some sales go for way more, but those are usually either graded or like in absolute mint condition. But if you're looking for one, if you don't mind little tiny defects here and there, you will still be paying roughly well over $100 into the 130s to 150s. Let's move on to the 4th spot on today's list, where we have the Clone Captain Rex number 59 from the Black Series line. And yes, we did receive a newer version or a newer iteration of Rex, but that one was based on the Bad Batch appearance, whereas in this one is based on his Clone Wars appearance in the animated series. And even though both versions are completely different from each other, they have different features, and they are from completely different eras of the Star Wars universe. As soon as the newer version of Rex came out, which as I mentioned was the Bad Batch action figure, for some unknown reason the original one definitely plummeted in value. Not by a lot, but there was a point where this was the most coveted version of Rex, but the Bad Batch is very close behind. I believe if you want to pick that one up brand new in really good condition, you're probably looking to pay about $60 to $70. It's still quite a bit, but not as much as this figure. Whereas if you want this one brand new in packaging in really good condition, you're going to be paying roughly about like 120. I have seen some for a little bit lower, about $100, but they're usually from retailers that are not very trustworthy or just don't have the greatest ratings, or the packaging has a little bit of damage. But if you're looking for one brand new and really good condition or near mint condition, you're going to be paying close to about 150. I've seen some listing go for a little bit more, but as I said, because of the newer version, this always usually happens. Even though they're two completely different separate appearances, usually the original one tends to drop in value. This is somewhat of an outdated body mold, so hopefully we get an updated version soon. But if you guys are looking for the original Clone Wars appearance Rex, you are going to be looking to pay anywhere from like 130 to 150. That is our fourth spot. Let's move on to the third spot on today's list, where we have the 40th anniversary X-Wing pilot Luke. Now this is really a very interesting figure because we have received a re-release archived version, but absolutely nobody wants that one. I remember it being on clearance for like $8, probably as low as $5 at some points. But everybody wants that retro card. Obviously, it displays incredibly well. It's a really iconic look for Luke. Definitely not the most iconic, but it's definitely a memorable moment for those of us that are big Star Wars fans. Obviously, because this is a retro card action figure, condition is going to be very, very important. I have seen a lot of these already graded at like really high nines or nines, going for over $1,000. It's absolutely insane. If you want one that's just in really good condition, like no damages or no major issues, you are going to be looking at roughly about like 160 to 170. If you want an absolutely near mint condition one, you are going to have to be paying closer to $200. It's one of those figures that has definitely cemented itself in the mind of collectors as one of the most coveted versions of Luke Skywalker. So there you have it. That is our third spot. Moving on to the second spot on today's list, and yes, we do have back-to-back versions of Captain Rex on today's list. I decided to put the HasCon exclusive Black Series Captain Rex. It goes without saying, it's basically a special edition of Captain Rex. Not only that, it's kind of like a more deluxe version of Rex as well. And it is a very, very limited edition that very few people have in their collection. As I said, if you want like a graded one, I have seen some that are graded in really good condition for as high as like $800 to $900. But if you just want one that's like in really good condition, brand new mint or near mint, you're going to have to pay high 100s, close to 200. It just depends on what condition you want the figure to be in. But most of the ones that are getting sold for about 180 to like 190, almost all of them have some pretty good damage to the boxes themselves. They have creases or bent corners or just quite a bit of damage, and they're not going to display incredibly well. So if you want, like I said, one that's in really good condition, you're going to be paying closer to 200, well over $200. Honestly, we could have an entire list of top 5 most expensive, and we could easily have, I think at some point, just nothing but Captain Rex or different versions of Rex, just because he's one of the absolute fan favorites from that era of the Star Wars universe. It's definitely a very well-deserved spot, considering you're going to be paying about over 2 Benjamins for this particular version of Captain Rex. Moving on to the top spot on today's list. Yes, we finally made it. I've wasted an insane amount of your time, an insane amount of saliva. But without further ado, our top spot on today's list has to go to Anakin Skywalker number 12 from the Black Series line. This is a really interesting figure. Granted, if you look at the last few sold listings, they're going for roughly about like 110 to 120, but most of them are not in great condition. The few that are in phenomenal condition did sell for quite a bit more. I believe some of the sold listings were going for about 150. Now, if you're looking for anything available at the moment, you'd actually be very hard pressed to actually find this available. When I did my extensive research, and I mean like a couple of minutes during lunch break. I actually only found like two of these. One of them was pre-owned, going for well over $100, and then the other one was from, I think, was shipping from Canada for about 120. So this figure is not only pretty expensive. If you want one that's in, like, the box is in perfect condition, you're going to be paying roughly about the same price as some of the other figures on today's list. The only reason that I decided to put this at the top is just because of availability. Even though some of these, like I said, in really great condition, have consistently sold for about 150, and you might see some for a little bit lower, but just the fact that there are very few of these out in the wild, and even if there are some out in the wild, you're just not 100% sure if they are original. I believe there was like some knockoff versions of this action figure made not too long ago. So it's going to be very difficult to be able to tell what exactly is original and what is knockoff or a reproduction from overseas. This is another really interesting one, very similar to the Luke Skywalker on today's list. There is an archive version of this figure, so you can actually go out and purchase a much cheaper one. It's still relatively expensive, but it's much less expensive than the orange stripe version, which obviously is the original one. I believe the archive goes for a little bit under $100, like anywhere from 80 to 100. So it just depends if you want the original packaging or you want the re-release, which in most cases, the archive figures are technically better options. They usually come with like an extra accessory that the original one didn't come with, or they come with like better paint applications or a brand new head sculpt. Although, to be brutally honest, guys, I would probably hold off on this figure for a number of reasons. The biggest one is that Hasbro recently has really started to invest into the Clone Wars era. We're starting to see, we saw like the battle droids, for example. We're starting to see the Ahsoka action figure from the Clone Wars, and I think slowly but surely they'll continue to go down that path, and I think we'll eventually get an Anakin from that particular era, whether it's Clone Wars or Revenge of the Sith. So if you don't want to spend a couple of Benjamins, just be patient. I really do feel like Hasbro is eventually going to give us a new version of Anakin. But there you have it. That is our top 5 for today's list. As always, if you guys enjoy the content, let me know down below. It always motivates us to read your guys' comments. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.